and you talked for a couple minutes, sent us some pictures, and then we lost contact. So what happened?
Well, my phone ran out of batteries, Stan. But over 1,000 of us there actually took over 5 blocks of the financial district and held that space, shut down those 5 blocks for at least 9 hours. Yesterday, Monday the 22nd, as part of the historic Flood Wall Street action. The slogan, "Capitalism equals climate chaos," connected the dots between the Wall Street financing of dirty energy and other dirty industries and the climate crisis, which threatens billions of people around the globe.
So you figure it was about 1,000 who took part in the action yesterday?
Oh, at least I've seen estimates saying up to 3,000.
And what exact streets did you go on?
Well, we took over the space from the Bull on Broadway all the way to Broadway and Pine, so it was about 5 blocks in total.
And did you try to go to Wall Street and close down the stock exchange, or was that not the goal?
Well, the stated goal was to actually have a mass sit-in at the New York Stock Exchange. However, Lisa Fithian, one of the organizers, posted the next day, our goal all along was to take the space by the Bull, and the New York Stock Exchange sit-in was just a front, something to give to the police. I can't speak to that because I wasn't part of the original organizing process. But I can say that it was quite powerful taking the space by the Bull, because these are some of the busiest intersections in the whole financial district, Broadway and Wall Street, Broadway and the New York Stock Exchange streets.
Did the normal people who would take those streets come by, or were they diverted?
Oh, they had to take a long way around. Let me share with you a story here about a tourist bus that got held up by traffic. Actually, the tourists all had to get off the bus. They were being held up by protesters. It turned out that the bus driver was sympathetic to the protests. And I know this because a friend of mine was asked, along with other of the protests with her, to board the bus. The driver said that he was disappointed he couldn't have joined the People's Climate March on Sunday, and he was glad to be in the thick of things in Flood Wall Street. And so the protesters boarded the bus, and as the Flood Wall Street let the bus drive by, the protesters leaned out the windows and over the top of the bus and started cheering and chanting along with us.
And you sent us that video, but at the time you didn't really recognize or know the full story, is that right?
That's right. I found it out later, talking to some of the people that had been on the bus. One of the songs that we sang that I found very powerful had the following lyrics. "The people gonna rise with the water, gonna calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter, gonna shut down Wall Street now," saying "shut down Wall Street now." This was one of the first actions on a large scale that named capitalism as the system requiring infinite growth on a finite planet, threatening the very climate that we live on. And it was powerful to see so many people out there, not just from the march and young people, but also from the front lines of the climate crisis, people from First Nations in Canada, in Arizona, people from the Diné First Nation threatened by Peabody's coal mining.
So how long were you out there on the street?
We started the march around 11:30, took the space, and we held it there until around 8:30, when everybody was either dispersed or arrested. So at around 7 o'clock, maybe a little bit after 7, the police gave their dispersal orders. At that point, my affinity group, which is a fancy term for my action group, decided, okay, we've accomplished what we set out to do. We were prepared to be arrested, but we took over this space for so many hours, and so we're going to head over to the sidewalk and support the people that remain. So at around 7 o'clock, we went onto the sidewalk and we watched what happened. Now, 100 people stayed on the street and remained there and were arrested. This included somebody who was paraplegic, who used a tube to help him breathe. This included somebody dressed as a polar bear who was actually handcuffed in his suit.
So what did you do for all those hours? Basically sitting. If the sun's in the eye, I can.
Well, there were speeches, there was music, there were discussions and breakout groups. There were all sorts of things to do. I talked to people from California who were suffering from unprecedented droughts and were worried about what's to come. I spoke to New Yorkers who were hit especially badly from Hurricane Sandy in 2012 and dreaded what future hurricanes are going to look like. So we had all sorts of discussions like that. The Wall Street bells rang at 4 o'clock, meaning the bankers stopped working at 4. So shortly before 4 o'clock, we made an attempt to march from the Bull over onto Wall Street. This was not successful because we got to the intersection and police had heavily barricaded the intersection with metal barricades. I was about the 5th row from the front. The people in the first row tried to push and tried to remove the barricades, but the police shoved them back and used pepper spray. Somebody from my affinity group was asthmatic and felt the pepper spray pretty strongly, so we didn't actually make it onto Wall Street, but we did succeed in holding that space for much longer than we expected.
Was anybody arrested in that initial confrontation?
Not then. Earlier in the day, I saw one person get arrested. Elliot Hughes he was a wobbly, and he was standing on top of a telephone booth. And then when he got down, he was arrested. But the mass arrests didn't happen until that evening. And if I could just say, the way that this was organized was completely horizontal. The idea is that we had enough with this hierarchical capitalist system causing climate crisis, and we were putting into practice some of the building blocks for a greener society. That meant that we were organizing ourselves horizontally. We had these code words: surge, meaning take up a space, take up a street, and sink, meaning sit down. Of course, we were all wearing blue, representing the rising sea levels. But it wasn't as if there was a commander saying those words and everyone else followed. Anyone could say the words and anyone could follow. It was very horizontal and democratic.
What do you think about the announcement by the, great-grandson of the Rockefellers, the big Standard Oil people, that they're going to divest from fossil fuel companies? Did you hear about that?
I saw the headline, Stan. It makes me wonder, is what he's going to invest in really that much better? I mean, a lot of green capitalists are supporting so-called green energies like biomass incineration and trash incineration, which are not technically fossil fuels but are still exceptionally bad for the climate. So I always take the green capitalists with a grain of salt.
Okay, last question. What's your view? The whole weekend was positive. What did you think?
Well, I think that the green NGOs, the Sierra Clubs, the 350.orgs, and the NRDCs and so forth, got lots and lots of people out on the streets, but it was really up to the frontline groups, the Climate Justice Alliance, Rising Tide North America, the radicals, and the people directly impacted, those groups successfully seized the moment to shift the discussion towards systemic change, towards climate justice, not just climate action. So I was very pleased to see people take control and push beyond what the mainstream groups have been hoping. Not just to have a big march in a permitted legal march, but to actually disrupt business as usual and take over a part of the financial district.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.